The radio crackled at 3:47 hours, and Lieutenant Colonel Maverick Ghost Hawk Thorne knew immediately that something had gone catastrophically wrong. The voice on the other end belonged to Master Chief Petty Officer Jake Ironclad Morrison, and in 15 years of joint operations, she had never heard that particular strain in his voice. The kind that came when elite warriors found themselves staring into an abyss they couldn't punch, shoot, or repel their way out of. Ghost Hawk, we need immediate close air support. Grid coordinates follow. The static couldn't mask the desperation bleeding through Morrison's typically granite-steady tone. We've got 8 friendlies pinned down in a canyon system. Enemy positions on 3 sides, elevation advantage. Standard attack vectors won't work, canyons too narrow, walls too steep. Previous CAS attempts have been unsuccessful. Maverick sat in the pre-dawn darkness of her ready room at Forward Operating Base Talon, her weathered A-10 Thunderbolt II visible through the window like a sleeping predator. The aircraft had been her companion through 3 combat deployments, its titanium bathtub cockpit and massive GAU-8 cannon earning respect from ground forces across 2 theaters. But what Morrison was describing sounded like a geographical impossibility for close air support. The briefing officer's voice cut through the calm. Ghost Hawk, be advised, canyon system designated Viper's Throat. Previous CAS attempts by F-16s and Apache gunships resulted in mission abort due to terrain constraints. Canyon width at narrowest point, 47 meters. Minimum safe clearance for standard attack runs, 65 meters. Maverick's fingers drummed against her flight suit, a habit born from countless pre-mission briefings where the math didn't add up favorably. The numbers painted a stark picture. American warriors trapped in terrain that aerial assets couldn't safely navigate, while enemy forces held the high ground with impunity. It was the kind of tactical nightmare that kept commanders awake at night and filled body bags by dawn. Copy all. What's the enemy strength assessment? Estimated 30 to 40 hostiles. Mixed small arms, probable RPGs, and at least 2 confirmed heavy machine gun positions. They've got overlapping fields of fire covering the canyon floor. Our people are in a bad way, Ghost Hawk, real bad. Through her headset, Maverick could hear the distant thump of mortars and the sharp crack of rifle fire. Somewhere in that labyrinth of stone and shadow, 8 American warriors were fighting for their lives against impossible odds, waiting for salvation that conventional wisdom said couldn't come from the sky. She stood, her boots clicking against the concrete floor with mechanical precision. Outside, the first pale fingers of dawn were beginning to probe the eastern mountains, painting the landscape in shades of amber and steel. It was going to be a beautiful morning to prove the impossible. The flight line buzzed with pre-dawn activity as Maverick emerged from the operations center, her helmet tucked under one arm and tablet displaying tactical data clutched in the other. The weight of 8 American lives pressed against her shoulders like a physical burden, each step toward her aircraft measured against the ticking clock of combat mortality. Ground crews were already prepping the A-10, their movements sharp and efficient in the pale morning light. Chief Master Sergeant Rodriguez approached with her pre-flight checklist, his weathered face betraying none of the concern that had dominated the emergency briefing. Ma'am, aircraft's fueled and armed. Full load of 30 mixed He and armor-piercing. Maverick missiles loaded on stations 3 and 11. We've also loaded extra flare dispensers. Heard this canyon's got some nasty thermal signatures. Maverick nodded, her eyes scanning the aircraft that had carried her through 97 combat missions without a single mission failure. The A-10's ungainly appearance belied its lethal capability. Twin engines mounted high to avoid ground debris, massive cannon protruding from the nose like an accusatory finger, and armor plating that could absorb punishment that would down sleeker aircraft. Time to target. 17 minutes at best speed. Weather's clear, but intelligence reports possible surface-to-air threats in the area. Rodriguez paused, his expression growing serious. Colonel, I've been working A-10s for 22 years. Never seen a canyon narrow enough to keep one of these birds out. Just watch your six. The pre-flight inspection proceeded with mechanical precision. Control surfaces, engine intakes, weapon systems, emergency equipment. Each item checked off represented another layer of preparation between success and catastrophe. But as Maverick settled into the cockpit, the familiar embrace of the titanium bathtub couldn't dispel the weight of the tactical reality awaiting her. The radio crackled as she initiated engine startup procedures. Morrison's voice cut through again, more strained than before. Ghost talk, situations deteriorating. We've lost radio contact with Alpha Team's forward observer. Enemies moving to flank our position. Whatever you're planning, we need it soon. Maverick's hands moved across the instrument panel with practiced efficiency, bringing the twin General Electric turbofans online. The familiar whine of spooling engines filled the cockpit, a sound that had preceded every significant moment of her military career. But this morning felt different, heavier, more consequential. Ghost talked to Tower, requesting immediate departure. Emergency close air support mission. Tower copies Ghost Talk. You're cleared for takeoff, runway 27. Winds light and variable, good hunting. The A-10 rolled forward, gathering momentum as 17,000 pounds of aircraft, armor, and ammunition accelerated toward takeoff speed. At 130 knots, Maverick pulled back on the stick, and the Warthog lifted into the morning sky with characteristic determination rather than grace. Below, the forward operating base shrank to toy soldier proportions, replaced by a landscape of increasing complexity and danger. Navigation systems locked onto the coordinates Morrison had provided, painting a direct course toward terrain that had already claimed the confidence of previous rescue attempts. The tactical display showed the canyon system as a narrow scar cut deep into the mountains, barely wide enough for the A-10's 47-foot wingspan. Conventional wisdom declared such an approach suicidal. Canyon walls would create turbulence, limit maneuvering options, and funnel the aircraft into a killing zone where enemy fire could concentrate with devastating effect. But conventional wisdom had never met Lieutenant Colonel Maverick Thorne. The landscape below transformed from rolling hills to increasingly rugged terrain as Maverick approached the target area. Her radar warning receiver remained quiet, but intelligence, reports of possible surface-to-air missiles, kept her scanning the horizon for telltale smoke trails. The morning sun climbed steadily, casting long shadows that would both conceal and reveal tactical opportunities once she reached the canyon system. Ghost Hawk Morrison, we can hear your engines. Enemy forces are repositioning. Looks like they're trying to set up a crossfire pattern across the canyon mouth. Be advised, we've identified at least 2 possible SAM sites on the ridge lines. Maverick's jaw tightened as she processed the tactical update. Surface-to-air missiles would force her to maintain low altitude, exactly where the canyon walls would limit her options most severely. It was a tactical puzzle that seemed designed to eliminate air support as a viable option, leaving the ground forces to face impossible odds with diminishing ammunition and no avenue for extraction. The GPS display showed 2 minutes to target, 2 minutes to attempt something that multiple aircraft had already deemed impossible, 2 minutes to prove that sometimes the difference between victory and defeat wasn't superior numbers or advanced technology, but the willingness of one person to fly where others wouldn't dare. Her radio crackled again. All call signs, this is Overwatch. Ghost Hawk, be advised that canyon approach is not recommended by operational command. Suggest alternate strategies for ground force extraction. Maverick's response was immediate and unwavering. Overwatch Ghost Hawk, I don't extract warriors, I save them. The canyon's mouth appeared ahead like a wound in the earth, its walls rising to heights that seemed to scrape the belly of the sky itself. From altitude, the passage looked impossibly narrow, a geological trap that had swallowed the confidence of previous rescue attempts. But as Maverick began her descent, Her experienced eye began identifying possibilities that briefing rooms and satellite imagery couldn't convey. The morning thermals rising from sun-heated rock faces created updrafts that could provide crucial lift during low-altitude maneuvering. The canyon's serpentine path, while limiting straight-line attack runs, also provided natural cover from some enemy positions while exposing others. Most importantly, the walls themselves, so feared by conventional tactical planning, could serve as shields against surface-to-air missiles that required clear line of sight for target acquisition. Ghost Hawk to all call signs beginning tactical approach. Morrison, I need continuous updates on friendly positions. Paint your location with infrared strobes. I'll need clear identification in the shadows. Copy Ghost Hawk. Strobes are active. Enemy positions appear concentrated on the north and south walls, approximately 200 meters into the canyon. We're pinned at the bend, about 400 meters from the mouth. Maverick rolled the A-10 into a steep descending turn, bleeding altitude rapidly as she aligned with the canyon's axis. The aircraft shuddered slightly as it encountered the first turbulence from heated air rising off the rocky surfaces, but the flight controls remained responsive and predictable. At 500 feet above ground level, she was committed to an approach that would either save 8 American warriors or add one more aircraft to the canyon's collection of failures. The canyon walls rose on either side like cathedral buttresses, their surfaces scarred by millennia of wind and water erosion. In the narrow strip of sky visible above, Maverick could see contrails from high-altitude aircraft, other missions, other wars being fought in the clean air above while she descended into the geological maze below. Her threat warning system remained silent, suggesting that any surface-to-air missiles were either powered down or positioned where the canyon walls blocked their radar signatures. But the absence of electronic threats didn't diminish the kinetic dangers ahead. Small arms fire, rocket-propelled grenades, and the ever-present risk of controlled flight into terrain that had ended too many military careers in clouds of smoke and twisted metal. Ghost Hawk, I've got visual on your aircraft. You're lower than anyone's flown in here. How copy? Copy all, Morrison. Beginning weapon systems check. The familiar weight of the GAU-8 cannon's ammunition drum settled into Maverick's awareness as she armed the aircraft's primary weapon system. 700 rounds of 30mm ammunition, each projectile capable of destroying light vehicles or fortified positions with surgical precision. But precision would be meaningless if she couldn't achieve stable firing solutions in the confines of the canyon's narrow passage. The tactical display showed friendly infrared strobes blinking steadily from a position deeper in the canyon, exactly where Morrison had indicated. Around those strobes, the thermal imaging revealed the heat signatures of enemy positions, clusters of warm bodies positioned behind rocky outcroppings and in shadowed alcoves that provided excellent fields of fire across the canyon floor. As Maverick committed to her final approach, the A-10's engines echoed off the canyon walls with a sound like rolling thunder trapped in stone. Behind her, the mouth of the canyon began to close like the jaws of some ancient predator, leaving only the narrow path ahead and the deadly mathematics of close air support in impossible terrain. The first enemy position revealed itself as muzzle flashes flickering from a rocky outcropping on the north wall, roughly 150 meters ahead. Maverick's targeting system locked onto the heat signature automatically, but the firing solution required her to thread the A-10 between canyon walls with less than 20 feet of clearance on either side. The margin for error was measured in inches, the consequences of miscalculation absolute. Morrison, confirmed friendly positions are marked and clear of north wall engagement area. Confirmed, Ghost Hawk. We're buttoned up and ready for your run. Maverick's thumb found the cannon trigger as she entered the final phase of her attack. The canyon walls streaked past in a blur of stone and shadow, the A-10's engines reverberating with increasing intensity as the passage narrowed. At this altitude and speed, the aircraft felt less like a flying machine and more like a guided missile with a human brain directing its trajectory toward a collision with destiny. The targeting pipper settled onto the enemy position just as tracer rounds began reaching up from multiple locations along the canyon walls. Green streaks of enemy fire crisscrossed the narrow airspace ahead, creating a deadly web that previous aircraft had been unwilling or unable to penetrate. But Maverick pressed forward, her focus narrowed to the mathematical precision required to deliver effective fire without becoming another casualty of terrain and tactics. The GAU-8 cannon erupted with its characteristic buzzsaw roar, sending a stream of 30 depleted uranium rounds into the rocky outcropping at a rate of 65 rounds per second. The enemy position disintegrated in a shower of pulverized stone and shattered equipment, its occupants silenced before they could adjust their aim to track the A-10's unconventional approach angle. Direct hit on North Wall position. Morrison, how copy? Outstanding work, Ghost Hawk. That's one machine gun nest neutralized. But be advised, we're taking increased fire from positions further up the canyon. They know you're in here now. Maverick pulled the A-10 into a climbing turn, using the canyon's natural curvature to break line of sight with remaining enemy positions, while she reassessed the tactical situation. The aircraft's armor had absorbed several small arms impacts without affecting flight characteristics, validating the Warthog's reputation for battlefield survivability. But each subsequent attack run would be more dangerous as enemy forces adapted to her presence and concentrated their defensive fire. The radio crackled with updates from multiple sources. Ghost Hawk, Overwatch. Satellite imagery shows enemy reinforcements moving toward the canyon from the east. Estimated time of arrival 20 minutes. Morrison, Ghost Hawk. Can your people move to alternate positions while I engage remaining threats? Negative. We've got 2 wounded who can't be moved quickly, and the canyon floor's completely exposed to crossfire from the remaining positions. We're counting on you to clear the path. Maverick banked the A-10 around for another attack run, this time targeting a heavy machine gun position on the south wall that had revealed itself by engaging her during the previous pass. The canyon's acoustics amplified every sound, engine noise, gunfire, and the whistle of wind across rocky surfaces, creating a symphony of combat that seemed to emanate from the earth itself. As she lined up for the second attack, Maverick noticed something that intelligence briefings had missed. The canyon walls weren't uniformly vertical. Subtle variations in angle and surface texture created micro-canyons and shadowed alcoves that could provide temporary concealment during attack runs. It was the kind of tactical detail that could only be observed from inside the canyon, flying at altitudes where the margin between success and catastrophe was measured in wingspans. The second machine gun position opened fire earlier this time, its crew having learned from their comrades' fate. Tracer rounds streaked past the A-10's canopy in increasingly accurate patterns, forcing Maverick to jink left and right within the canyon's narrow confines. The aircraft's response was immediate and predictable, its massive control surfaces providing the authority needed for precision maneuvering even in the turbulent air rising from heated stone surfaces. Maverick's return fire was equally precise, the GAU-8 cannon delivering surgical destruction to the enemy position in a burst that lasted less than 2 seconds, but contained enough kinetic energy to eliminate the threat permanently. Fragments of destroyed equipment tumbled down the canyon wall, clattering against rock surfaces, before disappearing into shadowed crevices where they would remain as testimony to the morning's violence. Second position neutralized. Morrison, I need a tactical update on remaining threats. Ghost Hawk, we're showing significant reduction in incoming fire. Looks like one more position on the north wall, approximately 300 meters deeper into the canyon. But that's where it gets complicated. The tone in Morrison's voice suggested that complicated was a substantial understatement. As Maverick pressed deeper into the canyon system, the passage continued to narrow while the walls rose higher, creating an increasingly constrictive environment that challenged both aircraft performance and pilot nerve. The thermal updrafts became more turbulent, and the acoustic effects of engine noise reflected off stone surfaces created a disorienting sensory environment that could easily overwhelm less experienced aviators. But Maverick Thorne had earned her call sign by operating in environments where others saw only impossibility, and this morning's mission was rapidly becoming the defining moment of a career built on exceeding expectations and redefining operational limits. The final enemy position occupied a natural fortress carved into the canyon wall by geological processes spanning millennia. From her current angle, Maverick could see why previous aircraft had been unable to engage effectively. The position was protected by an overhang that deflected fire from above while providing excellent fields of observation and fire across the canyon floor. Attacking it would require her to fly deeper into the canyon than any previous attempt, into airspace so confined that recovery from equipment failure or battle damage would be impossible. Morrison, I need you to guide me to within visual range of your position. That last enemy nest is using terrain masking that's preventing effective engagement from my current position. Copy Ghost Hawk, we can hear your engines getting closer. Recommend approach from the southwest. There's a slight bend in the canyon that might give you a better angle, but be aware the walls get narrow, really narrow. Maverick acknowledged the guidance while checking her fuel state and ammunition count. The mission was consuming resources at a higher rate than planned due to the repeated attack runs and extended low-altitude maneuvering. She had sufficient fuel for perhaps 2 more attack attempts before reaching minimum recovery reserves, meaning that the next few minutes would determine whether 8 American warriors would see another sunset. The canyon bend Morrison had described appeared ahead like a geological question mark, its curvature suggesting that the passage beyond might provide the tactical advantage needed to eliminate the final threat. But it also represented the point of no return. Once committed to that approach, the canyon walls would prevent any maneuvering other than straight ahead, making retreat impossible until the passage widened again or ended entirely. All stations, this is Ghost Hawk, beginning final approach to eliminate remaining threat. If this doesn't work, you'll need to prepare for alternate extraction methods. Morrison's response carried a grim determination that reflected 15 years of joint operations and mutual respect. Understood, Ghost Hawk. Just so you know, we've called in everything we've got. You're our ace in the hole. Make it count. The A-10 entered the narrow section of canyon, with its wings nearly brushing stone surfaces that had been carved by water and time into shapes that seemed designed to challenge human audacity. The aircraft's titanium bathtub cockpit provided protection from small arms fire, but the psychological pressure of flying through a passage barely wider than the aircraft's wingspan tested every aspect of Maverick's training and experience. The final enemy position came into view as a cluster of heat signatures behind a rocky barricade that commanded an excellent view of the canyon floor below. From this angle, Maverick could understand why the SEAL team had been unable to advance. Any movement in the open would expose them to accurate fire from an elevated position with perfect fields of observation. It was a tactical nightmare that could only be resolved from the air, and only by an aircraft willing to enter the enemy's engagement envelope at point-blank range. The targeting system acquired the heat signatures automatically, but the firing solution required Maverick to maintain level flight for approximately 3 seconds while flying between canyon walls that left no room for defensive maneuvering. It was the kind of tactical situation that killed pilots who hesitated and rewarded those who committed fully to the attack despite overwhelming risks. Morrison, confirm all friendlies are in covered positions, beginning final attack run. All friendly personnel are buttoned up and ready. You are cleared hot, Ghost Hawk. Bring the thunder. Maverick's finger closed on the cannon trigger as the A-10 bore down on the final enemy position, like an avenging angel wrapped in titanium and armed with depleted uranium. The GAU-8 cannon spoke with its characteristic authority, sending a precisely aimed stream of destruction into the rocky fortress that had defied previous rescue attempts. The enemy position disintegrated under the sustained fire, its occupants and equipment scattered across the canyon wall in a display of kinetic violence that ended the threat permanently. But victory came with a price. As Maverick pulled out of the attack run, the A-10's right engine began showing temperature and pressure anomalies indicating possible battle damage. The aircraft remained flyable, but the margin for error had narrowed considerably, and the narrow canyon passage ahead offered no opportunities for emergency procedures or equipment troubleshooting. Ghost Hawk Morrison, outstanding shooting. All enemy positions appear neutralized. We're seeing movement opportunities down here for the first time in hours. How's your aircraft? Minor battle damage but still mission capable. What's your extraction timeline? Give us 15 minutes to gather our wounded and move to the extraction point. The path is clear now. Your shooting opened up options we haven't had since this started. Maverick acknowledged while nursing the wounded aircraft through the canyon's remaining passages toward open sky and safety. The right engine continued to run, but with reduced power and increasing vibration that suggested internal damage from enemy fire. The A-10's legendary durability was being tested, but the aircraft continued to respond to control inputs and maintain flying speed despite the mechanical distress. As the canyon mouth appeared ahead like a gateway to salvation, Maverick reflected on the morning's events with the measured satisfaction of a professional warrior who had accomplished the impossible through skill, determination, and a willingness to fly where others wouldn't follow. 8 American lives had been preserved, enemy forces had been eliminated, and the tactical situation had been resolved through the application of precise violence delivered at point-blank range. The A-10 emerged from the canyon into open sky like a wounded bird finding sanctuary, its damaged engine trailing a thin stream of vapor that dissipated quickly in the morning air. Behind them, the canyon system stood silent except for the echo of recent violence, and the quiet movements of American warriors finally able to move freely through terrain that had been transformed from a death trap into a corridor to safety. Overwatch Ghost Hawk. Mission complete. All enemy positions neutralized, friendly forces moving to extraction point, returning to base with minor battle damage. Outstanding work, Ghost Hawk. Recovery vehicles are en route to assist the ground forces. Medical personnel are standing by for wounded personnel transfer. The flight back to forward operating base Talon proceeded without incident despite the damaged engine, the A-10's robust systems compensating for the reduced power output while maintaining stable flight characteristics. From altitude, Maverick could see the landscape transforming from the scarred terrain of active combat zones to the relative safety of coalition-controlled territory. But her thoughts remained focused on the narrow canyon where 8 American warriors had faced impossible odds, until close air support arrived in the form of a single A-10 flown by a pilot unwilling to accept conventional limitations. The radio crackled with congratulations from various sources as word of the successful rescue spread through military communication networks. But the praise that mattered most came from Master Chief Morrison's voice, transmitted from the extraction point where his team was finally safe from enemy fire. Ghost Hawk, I don't know how you threaded that needle, but you saved 8 lives today. We won't forget it. As forward operating base Talon appeared on the horizon, Maverick began preparing for an approach and landing that would conclude one of the most challenging missions of her career. The damaged engine required careful power management, but the A-10's design philosophy prioritized survivability over performance, ensuring that battle damage rarely prevented safe return to base. The aircraft had protected her while she protected the warriors on the ground, completing a cycle of mutual preservation that defined the best traditions of military aviation. The tower cleared her for immediate landing with emergency vehicles standing by as a precautionary measure. The approach proceeded normally despite the engine anomalies, the A-10's massive control surfaces providing ample authority for precise touchdown, even with reduced power. As the aircraft settled onto the runway with characteristic authority, Maverick felt the satisfaction of another mission completed. Another group of American warriors brought safely home through the application of skill, courage, and an unwillingness to accept defeat. Ground crews swarmed the aircraft immediately after shutdown, their inspection revealing extensive small arms damage to the right engine nacelle and surrounding structures. Bullet holes stitched across titanium armor told the story of a close-range engagement, where survival had been measured in inches and victory, achieved through precise application of overwhelming firepower. The A-10 had absorbed punishment that would have destroyed lesser aircraft, while delivering the surgical violence needed to save 8 lives trapped in impossible terrain. As Maverick climbed down from the cockpit, she was met by Colonel Martinez, the base commander, whose expression mixed relief with professional admiration for a mission that would become legendary within the close air support community. Outstanding work, Ghost Hawk. Intelligence is calling this the most challenging CAS mission of the deployment. How'd you thread a passage that narrow? Sir, sometimes you don't fly around obstacles. Sometimes you fly through them. The debriefing session that followed would be studied at military academies and pilot training programs for years to come. Its tactical lessons incorporated into curricula, designed to prepare future aviators for the challenges of close air support in complex terrain. But for Maverick Thorne, the mission's significance lay not in its technical achievements, but in its human cost. 8 American warriors who would return home to their families, because one pilot was willing to fly where conventional wisdom said no aircraft could go. The damaged A-10 would spend the next week in maintenance, its battle scars repaired by ground crews who understood that each bullet hole represented a moment when superior firepower and pilot skill had intersected to preserve American lives. The aircraft would return to service stronger than before, its systems upgraded, and its legend enhanced by another successful mission in impossible circumstances. But the real legend belonged to Lieutenant Colonel Maverick Thorne, whose call sign had been earned through a career of exceeding expectations and redefining what was possible in military aviation. The Canyon mission would become her signature achievement, a demonstration of how skill, courage, and determination could overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles when American lives hung in the balance. Days later, as Maverick prepared for her next mission, she received a package from Master Chief Morrison containing 8 challenge coins, one from each member of the SEAL team whose lives had been saved in the narrow canyon. The accompanying note was simple but profound. Ghost Hawk, you flew where angels fear to tread and brought us all home. Semper Fi from 8 grateful warriors. The challenge coins joined others in her collection, each one representing a mission where close air support had made the difference between victory and defeat, between life and death for American forces engaged in combat operations around the world. But the coins from the Canyon mission occupied a special place, not just because of the tactical complexity involved, but because they represented the moment when Lieutenant Colonel Maverick Thorne proved that sometimes the impossible was simply another challenge waiting for the right pilot at the right moment. The A-10 Thunderbolt II continued to serve in combat operations across multiple theaters, its distinctive silhouette becoming synonymous with close air support precision and pilot courage. But among the aircrews who flew the Warthog in combat, one mission stood above all others as the defining example of what could be achieved when superior training, advanced technology, and human determination combined to overcome impossible odds. The canyon where 8 American warriors had faced their darkest hour became known informally as Ghost Hawk's Run, a testament to the morning when Lieutenant Colonel Maverick Thorne threaded her A-10 through a geological needle to deliver salvation, measured in 30 rounds and unshakable resolve. The tactical lessons learned that morning would influence close air support doctrine for decades to come, but the human lesson was timeless. Sometimes the difference between victory and defeat was a single pilot willing to fly where others wouldn't follow. In the years that followed, as Maverick Thorne advanced through higher commands and eventually transitioned to training the next generation of close air support pilots, she would always remember the morning in the canyon as the moment when everything she had learned about flying, fighting, and leading came together in perfect synthesis. It was the mission that defined not just her career, but her understanding of what it meant to be a warrior in service to warriors, an aviator whose wings carried the hopes and lives of those who fought on the ground below. The legend of the Canyon mission would outlive both the aircraft that flew it and the pilot who made it possible, becoming part of the oral tradition that bound military aviators together across generations and conflicts. But for those 8 American warriors who walked out of impossible terrain when conventional wisdom said they never would, the legend was simply the truth about what happened when Lieutenant Colonel Maverick, Ghost Hawk, Thorne decided that no canyon was too narrow, no enemy too well-positioned, and no mission too dangerous to prevent American warriors from coming home.